I wrote today at johncanzano.com about a variety of different things. It was a potpourri. It was a cornucopia. It was just a shotgun blast of reporting and information. I basically emptied my notebook on things ranging from Damian Martinez's new car, which he posted on social media, to the Oregon-Hawaii game, which is off on August 24th. It's not happening, but it remains on the schedule if you go to goducks.com, and I get into why that is. Game's off. No, if you have a ticket and you're going to fly to Hawaii, you can go to Hawaii, but you're not going to go see a football game involving the Oregon Ducks in August of this summer. And I also wrote a little bit about Jabbar Muhammad. And for people who don't know, he's a University of Washington defensive back who started his career out of high school at Oklahoma State, played 3 seasons there, transferred to Washington, was very good this last season, big part of their defense and their run to the national championship game. He decided after Kalen DeBoer got in the transfer portal and took a job at Alabama, Jabbar Muhammad decided, he had a choice. Does he stay at Washington and play for Jedd Fisch, brand new coach, or if he's going to play for a new coach, does he go somewhere else? He has decided to go to the University of Oregon. He announced it on social media last Saturday. I was on press row at Matthew Knight Arena when he tweeted it. There was kind of a little bit of a stir on press row, and our next guest had all the details because he talked with Jabbar Muhammad. Max Torres, you can read him and find his work at Ducks Digest, covers the Oregon Ducks, and he's joining us now. How you doing, Max?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me.
Man, I love how crisp you sound, how close you sound. That's awesome. Give me an idea. Like when you saw Jabbar Muhammad to Oregon, what was your reaction to it?
Yeah, I knew it was definitely a big move, a big pickup for the Ducks. It was largely a move that I was expecting. I think I had a pretty good pulse on that recruitment. Pretty much from the moment he hit the portal, I knew that was going to be an Oregon versus Texas battle, even though he did take that visit out to Tuscaloosa to see Kalen DeBoer and the Tide. But I knew it was a huge pickup for the Ducks. It was one that I think they needed just as they make their move to the Big Ten. And with this expanded playoff, you're going to have top DBs if you want to ultimately go and get that first national championship. And Jabbar Muhammad, it was certainly the best available.
Now, the departure of a coach, always causes angst in a fan base. The Washington fans were not happy with Jabbar Muhammad going from Washington to Oregon. There was a lot of blowback on social media. I don't really get it, but that's more of your world. Like, I don't want to single out Washington fans because Alabama fans were tweeting at him as well. They were mad he didn't pick Alabama. Texas fans were mad he didn't pick Texas. This happens whenever players are up in the air, but give me an idea. When you see that stuff, Max, like, what do you make of that? And what do you make of the grown-ups who are going after the kids?
It's pretty ridiculous, John. I do see it a lot, especially not even with just transfer portal guys. I'll see it with high school recruits, guys that are even younger than these transfer portal guys. And it's pretty sad to see, honestly, because, this was actually a part that I didn't include in the interview. But when I talked to Jabbar about it, he was saying, if these guys were in my position, more or less, I'm paraphrasing here, but this is what he was getting at, is if these guys were in my position and, they had a chance to, if they had a job or something that was a better opportunity, better fit for them, they would be, doing the same thing. So he was super, super mature about the answer, just saying that, I have a great family, a great support system that I'm leaning on through all of this process. So he said that he's not really paying it any mind, but it's pretty insane that you see these keyboard warriors or whatever you want to call them on Twitter just saying pretty tasteless things to these student athletes. So, Jabbar handled it the right way, and all you can really hope for is that doesn't happen anymore. But, it's something that we still see.
You talked to him, you had the interview with him, you got a sense of kind of where his head was and why he made the decision he made. Let's start with that. Like, he's probably, what is he looking for? When Kalen DeBoer leaves, what is Jabbar Muhammad looking for?
I think he was looking for that place that was going to be able to do a couple of different things for him. I think the first one was be playing for a contender. That was something that came up repeatedly in my discussions with him as he was in the portal and taking some of these trips, going to a place that was going to be able to contend for a national title. And I think Oregon certainly checks that box with the roster that Dan Lanning and the rest of that coaching staff is building out in Eugene. And then you also look at the fact that he was looking for a place that was going to kind of help promote him and market him and put him out there to help him realize that lifelong dream of going to the NFL. And if he can come to Eugene and pick up right where he left off with the Huskies playing lockdown defense, I think he'll be in a very good position to do just that.
His family, he also made in the piece you wrote, he made mention of Dan Lanning connecting with his family. How important is that stuff with recruits? Because I got to think they're being sold all the time. And I don't know, I'd just be a little leery of, they connect with your family. Like, what puts one coaching staff in front of another when it comes to that family feel?
Something that I've been kind of tracking lately or just digesting myself is the importance of connecting with the family versus just the recruit, because you can win over a recruit, but if you don't have the family on board, then they're obviously not going to be as in support of that decision as just the player is. So I think what really has put Oregon, I think, over some of these other schools is just the all-out approach that they have. It's not just one coach recruiting the player and the family. It's multiple coaches. Dan Lanning was obviously personally involved with this one. Tosh Lapoy and newly promoted defensive backs coach Chris Hampton, all those guys were involved. They go above and beyond as far as just trying to find those little details that could be like, wow, you knew that? Or, maybe it's something, I'm doing hypothetical here. Maybe it's like bringing a certain food or just doing those small things to make it feel like a home away from home. And I think that it just shows you that the staff will go to any length to try to separate themselves and take that unique recruiting approach to ultimately get the job done. So some of that, I don't know if I'd say Southern hospitality necessarily, but that was part of what he talked about. He said they have some people from the South up there in Eugene, so it kind of felt like the South a little bit. And he's not the first recruit that's told me that, John, interestingly enough. But that's kind of just some of the background there about kind of what the Ducks are doing to put themselves over the top with these families, I think.
Ducks Digest is a Sports Illustrated channel featuring Max Torres, our guest now, talking about Jabbar Muhammad in Oregon. And, in your piece, he makes this comment about Facetiming. He says Dan Lanning was always Facetiming him, and Tosh Lapoy, the defensive coordinator, was Facetiming him. And I found that interesting because, I'll be honest with you, Max, like I had a call with Mario Cristobal, who's at Miami now, and I expected him to call me, and he FaceTimed me. It was jarring to me. What is it with these coaches? Why do they want to see people's faces?
I'm not too sure. I haven't had the opportunity to be on FaceTime with a coach, but I think just it's another personal way to connect with players and with recruits. And I think a big part of it, too, is just taking advantage of the technology that we have at our fingertips. I think I can't imagine what doing this job would be like even 20 years ago. Just all the technology, whether it's social media, YouTube, Huddle, Instagram, like it's just you are connected with someone at the drop of a hat. And I think doing something like a FaceTime maybe shows a little bit more effort because you can see exactly how the person's acting. And I think when you ultimately get out to whatever school it is, obviously Oregon in this instance, I think that's you're seeing that Dan Lanning and these coaches are the same as they were when they were recruiting a said player like Jabbar Muhammad. He was talking about how they just kept telling him, hey, we want to get you out of here, we want to get you out here. And he's like, I'm ready to get out there. And then I think really he said that it kind of felt like home, and it felt like it was the spot he needed to be at once he got to take that visit.
Was there strategy in the way they announced it? It's a big basketball game. Oregon's playing Arizona. Lanning's at the basketball game. Or is that just coincidental that Muhammad happens to tweet it at that moment?
I viewed it as a little bit of a coincidence, but I do think that a lot of these announcements are incredibly strategic. If you're looking at the bigger picture here for that weekend, not only was there a big basketball game on, you had Lanning wearing the grass is damn green in Eugene sweatshirt, which was newly released. Like that's a big part of it. But the Ducks also had their big junior day, one of two junior days that they're having with top recruits flocking in from all over the country. And I think to just have it during that weekend while he was on campus, I think it all plays into just building up this momentum as much as you possibly can. So I don't see it so much overlapping necessarily with the basketball game, but when you have all of that, the merchandise, the spring game announcement, the staff is just pulling all the right strings at the right time. And I think Muhammad's announcement is the latest example of that.
Yeah, I think they're far more sophisticated than they used to be back in the day when people were faxing in their commitment. We're talking to Max Torres, who covers the University of Oregon, recruiting in particular. You used to hear kids say that facilities mattered, playing time mattered, relationship with the staff matters. Now we have some different attractions with NIL and the move to the Big Ten. And what do you think matters to kids in general? Like, and is it the same? Can you get sort of big picture, consensus on any of that, or is it individual and has to be tailored to every kid?
I think it is individual in some cases, but having done this for a while, I think that there are two big things that really, maybe three, let's go three, that really I think every player I talk to kind of comes around to in one way or another. The first one's relationships. I've heard this a couple times, just talking about, hey, yeah, Oregon has great facilities, or every school has amazing facilities, but what really matters are the people, the ones behind the scenes, the ones that are going to be coaching you up and you're seeing on a day-to-day basis, and that are ultimately going to take care of you and help you get to that next spot in your career, that next level. So the relationships are a huge part. The development factor is huge. I can't tell you how many times, John, I've heard, oh yeah, Dan Lanning's from Georgia, Tosh Lapoy's from Bama, so they know what winning football looks like. That is a recurring theme across so many of these interviews. Or, Will Stein's offense is getting these 1,000-yard receivers or putting up these crazy numbers. So the development factor is very real, which is why I think I'm excited to see what the Ducks can do in the draft, because I think that is another phenomenal recruiting tool. And then the third one, I think, is the brand, or couple that with exposure. I think that, when you think of Eugene, you don't think of a massive major city, but with technology, the Nike brand, the tradition and history of Oregon's program, like there's just the Big Ten Conference, there's all these factors that continue to pile up and can really help Oregon, I think, play bigger and have a bigger presence than you would expect from a kind of smaller city in Western Oregon.
The Big Ten, Oregon heading there. You've sort of had a up close look at the recruiting class. How does Oregon's recruiting class position it to compete right away in the Big Ten, 2 years from now in the Big Ten? What trend do you see forming?
The trend's shooting through the roof, really, is what it's looking like. I think that they are perfectly positioned to contend immediately in the Big Ten, because we saw Dan Lanning put that emphasis on recruiting the trenches, particularly along the defensive line. I think that Oregon has kind of proven that they can do a bit more with less along the offensive line, and that's by no means a shot to the players that are playing that position, but I think that they were just not where they needed to be necessarily with the caliber of defensive line talent that they were bringing in, but that immediately changed once Dan Lanning came in. I think he signed the best defensive line class from the high school ranks in the 2024 class. And then you bring in a guy like Jamari Caldwell from the transfer portal to get some experience there. And I think that they are positioned to be incredibly competitive and very successful for years to come in the Big Ten.
All right, Max, I really appreciate you joining us. Great stuff, great insight, great work in getting Jabbar Muhammad and for that interview. If you want to read it, you can. I linked to Max's piece in what I wrote today at johncanzano.com. Or you can find Max on social media as well. He's an easy find there. Max Torres, you're the best, man. M. Torres Sports. And Max, I really appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, John. I appreciate it.
All right. There he goes. Max Torres. Coming up, Jed Lowry. We got him top of the hour.